Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Commodity Insights podcast with the crew at Farmers Trading Company here. After another mixed week of commodity action with the grains beating us up and the cattle market seeming to be strong still, I guess we'll get started with that cattle market, Vince. Some strength today after it was pretty quiet all week, I guess, and we had the cattle on feed report last week and no big scares there or anything. And then today, mid-session, late session here, it just kind of took off and ran. Did you hear any news out of there that caused some of that, or what are your thoughts there?
So far, struggling to find something, Connor. It sure looks like higher cash. I know the South is asking for 192 to 194. Whether they get that or not, that's a good question. But that's what they were asking. So one would think you did something there, or else you came up with just some injection of fund money. And I would
Mhm.
think it's going to take something to get those funds to inject as some kind of a news. So you got to think there was something cash behind it. Box beef, it's been pretty decent volume all week moving, lower today, higher the last couple of days. We're still staying above that 322 level in that choice, which is important, I think, to hold us together. But one wonders if one of these days that doesn't tip over and be done from a seasonal standpoint.
And with that cattle market, I guess we talked about the cattle on feed report last week. And is there really any news other than, I mean, just this time frame or this time of year? Is there really anything that market should be looking for, or expectations, or things that you might see coming, or is it just going to kind of be continue to watch the cash and see where time takes us?
I think cash is going to cash, fat cattle, and also that box beef are going to be the two most important ones. This is a weekend here where usually you've topped the box beef for last week, typically because you're done with most of those summertime features until you get to Labor Day. A lot of times you'll get a break in here. So far, it's held together. One of the things to consider is we'll get into next week. It's a short kill week, and the Packer gives their guys Thursday off, but could they opt to give them Friday off also? If they do, they could really make that a short kill week and make the box beef. I'll try to push it higher just in the lack of volume out there or availability. We'll have to see just how they handle that and where it's at.
And from like a cycle standpoint on that market, is there any cycles or things that you're watching coming up here in the next couple of weeks that a guy should be
Uh,
aware of?
Not right in here. There was some things mid-July that we want to be, I think, a little bit aware of. Um, and the other thing, cold storage was out on Tuesday. And maybe you call it positive numbers, but beef down 4% from last month, only down 1% from last year. And I think that's a disappointing number to the trade. But we sure didn't get any of that reflected even out of the chute this morning. We started higher and stayed there all day, whether it be feeders or fats.
And I think we'll take a peek at the cattle market sister market there, the hogs. That's been pretty much a bloodbath here for the last, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks. Just an ugly picture, but then today it seemed to find a little bit of strength in there with the cattle. Is this a place you thinking we're maybe going to bottom this thing? I know we put some contract lows in on some of those contracts, Vince, or what do the new contract lows mean for that market?
Typically, it usually isn't friendly, Connor, but we all know that there's going to be some point in time that you put in a new contract low, and it's the bottom. Did you have a nice reversal today? You did. So we'll see what Wednesday's trade does longer term. Is it the start of something? I'm not sure. We do see some divergence in some of those technical indicators that would say that we're maybe in that process of changing momentum to the upside, but we still have adequate numbers out there. And I think that's been our big burden. The trade has really been looking at us having less to kill, and we're actually killing more than we did a year ago. As we look at the cold storage numbers on that pork, we were down 9% from last month and down 3% from last year. Again, let's call that maybe a disappointing number. And maybe the other side of that, bellies were down 14% on the month and 7% on the year. There's sometimes in June that you get that report that you can get as much as a 15 to a 25% decline. So nothing gives us there, but was Wednesday just a situation where you ran out of sellers and somebody came in and bought to see if they're right? I think only the next couple of days will answer that question, but we should be, I think, getting close to some bottoms in here and pretty much opposite of what we would normally look at from a seasonal standpoint.
Hmm. And speaking of opposite of seasonals, I guess a good segue into the grain markets here. It seems like they've been pretty opposite this year, putting in new lows here in the middle of summer. Um, it's a disappointing market to say the least, and I don't know what positive news to say there, Vince. But do you think the bloodbath is coming to an end here soon, or is this just going to continue to bleed all the way through?
I think you're in one of those trending situations where you have the traditional funds that can both buy and sell have been selling this thing. They're making money and they can be brutal. They have no conscience. They don't care what happens to anybody else. If they can make money, they're going to keep doing it. Yes, there is the worries of what did we lose in the north for corn, and I think only time will tell us. The trade itself will probably not see those numbers until you get to September or October. Did visit with a client today who had some discussions with the poet plants across the United States, and their idea was after doing their surveys that they could have lost 20% of the corn in their areas that they're going to service. I think that might be a little high, but is a trade going to worry about that? No, right now it seems to be more focused that there are some rains predicted for that eastern corn belt that's been very hot and dry. The heat's supposed to subside any time in here now. So again, looking at rain makes grain, and who cares is really what the attitude seems to be right now.
Mm-hmm. And with that soybeans, it seems like they kind of started sliding quicker than the corn did, and they continue to kind of drag the corn down, or I don't know, I guess who's dragging who down at this point. It seems like they're all just falling off the cliff. But is there any fundamental news in that soybean market or things that you've heard out of the crush reports or things that can maybe help put a bottom in there?
Not right in here, Connor. It's you didn't really like to see that November close below 1109, which was a low last spring. See what we do the next couple of days. If we go below much below 11, there's probably going to be a lot of stops, I would guess. One has to wonder, keep in mind that Friday is first notice day. Friday is the end of the month trading. Friday is the end of the quarter trading. Plus, we've got our prospective plannings here that should tell us final numbers, which we know it won't. And we also have the quarterly stocks, and you got to think there's some of those people that have been long and getting beat up saying, I'm out of here, let's see what happens. And that is adding to the pressure along with the funds.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of touched on that report coming out Friday, Vince. Is there any expectations or things you've heard there, or is it just going to be another disappointing USDA report like they all seem to have been this year so far?
I think there's individual people that believe you could see less acres. The majority of the trade, I believes that you maybe see slightly more acres in both corn and wheat than you saw in that March report. Down the road, you may see less acres on that, but we really didn't have those planting problems or the delays until you got to June 1st. And that's really where this report goes to. So, like we always see this time of year, if there's anything positive that's going to come from the weather that's already happened, you probably don't see that until September or October.
Mm-hmm. And then last but not least with those grains there, the wheat market, Vince. It's been under heavy pressure from harvest and a good crop down in Kansas they were talking about. It's pretty much taken back its entire rally that it had here this summer. Is uh is there hope for that market too, or is it just in bed with the corn and the beans here and everybody's going lower?
I think there's somewhat going the same direction. Do you have some seasonals in here that between the 1st and the 10th of July is the time to buy the wheat market? Yes. Is it always right? No, it's not. But you beat this thing up enough where you could get some rallies. But I wouldn't look for anything sustained unless we find something different from a demand standpoint. Because right now, I don't see any big weather things that are going to threaten this thing short term.
And then last question, is there anything that you see in any of the commodities or anything that you've heard in the ag world that you'd like to get out there or that you think we need to make the producers aware of?
Well, one thing I thought was interesting visiting with the client on Wednesday morning, we got talking about double crop beans in the Eastern Corn Belt. And I think over the last couple of years in those areas, that double crop has picked up about 2 million acres of beans from what it used to be. Right now, they are concerned because the soft red winter wheat crop is behind, even though it had plenty of moisture. It's just behind as far as harvest, and they wonder if they get the double crop beans in. But the thing that I found amazing was 2 years ago, the current administration came back and guaranteed those producers on crop insurance 35 bushels an acre on that second crop bean, which is going to encourage these people to plant second crop beans. So again, does that add to the burden of where we're at? It does. You know, why would you come back and guarantee somebody 35 on the second crop one? Not quite sure, but found that interesting. And so did this guy when his friend had told him about it the other day.
And I think that's going to do it for this week's podcast. If we can be of any further assistance to you, give us a call at Farmers Trading Company. Our number is 605-996-6500, or check out the website farmerstradingco.com for more information. Thank you.